What's up everybody, this is McStan. Today I'm diving into something I've been wanting to talk about for a long time. Now before anything else, I just want to say this. I have absolutely no issues with the real Resident Evil Requiem that Capcom is making. I'm actually extremely excited for that game. It is my most anticipated game and I cannot wait to play it. But today, I want to talk about my vision. What Resident Evil 9 would look like if I were creating it from scratch. I would still call it Requiem because the tone, the themes, and the direction I'm going with fit that name perfectly. This is a Requiem for the original trilogy, for the survivors of the Raccoon City incident, and for the era of classic Umbrella horror. And we're going deep. We're building the lore, the characters, the pacing, the enemies, the systems, everything. This is my Resident Evil 9 Requiem. The heart of this game revolves around something that hasn't been fully explored yet in Resident Evil. A hybrid virus combining strains derived from the T-virus and the mold. This isn't just the mold infecting old creatures, it's a design formula that reacts specifically to people with altered blood. Anyone with viral remnant, special antibodies, or genetically enhanced DNA is basically a treasure chest of data for whoever is running these experiments. The mutation causes extremely unstable hybridizations. It revives, reshapes, and redefines organisms in unpredictable ways. Classic enemies like hunters, lickers, and tyrants become twisted, molded hybrids with new behaviors and weaknesses. Molded zombies are also a constant threat lurking in the ruins and forests. The second core pillar of the game is the return of the Zap system, expanded and modernized. Decisions in one player's playthrough directly change environments, puzzles, enemy placements, and even certain boss encounters in others. If you restore power in one route, another character might face a different obstacle later. If you don't barricade a window, maybe another character has to deal with enemies breaking through it during their section. These changes are not minor. They shape puzzles, encounters, and even boss battles. Decades after the Raccoon City incident, the government has sealed off everything from the city to its surrounding forest. Publicly, the quarantine exists for public safety. But the truth is far darker. The connections, now partially infiltrating branches of the government, have manipulated this quarantine into something else entirely. A massive free zone for biological experimentation, away from oversight, media, and international interference. This quarantine becomes the stage that draws Claire, Leon, Chris, and Jill back to where it all began. Claire's story kicks off where she's contacted by investigative reporter Alyssa Ashcroft from the Outbreak games, who has been researching a disturbing pattern. People with altered blood, former Raccoon City survivors, and even people tied to outbreaks around the world have been disappearing. Alyssa tracked many of these disappearances back to the quarantine zone surrounding Raccoon City. Among these people who have disappeared are Sherry Birkin and some survivors from the Outbreak games. So Alyssa is deeply invested and she figured that Claire would be as well. Unfortunately, Alyssa cannot act on this because she is also being targeted for her blood. She has the Daylight vaccine running through her system. Claire calls Chris, but he's deep in Europe investigating the BSAA. So Claire contacts the only other person who would risk everything to save Sherry, Leon S. Kennedy. The two meet at the border of the quarantine zone, determined to find answers. Claire's gameplay is pure survival focus, limited ammo, dark corridors, dangerous enemies. The Raccoon City ruins feel like the RE2 remake but worse, because everything is infected by this new hybrid strain. Through all of Claire's journey, she's relentlessly stalked by a Mr. X molded hybrid, bigger, faster, and warped by the virus. This creature appears multiple times, shaping her route and forcing puzzle solving under pressure. Eventually, Claire discovers that The path deeper into the quarantine zone leads toward an old cable car that once serviced the Arklay Mountains. She and Leon both end up taking the cable car, but their stories are still separate. They do not travel together through Raccoon City, and their reasons for boarding the cable car differ based on what each of them encounters. Leon's journey mirrors the tone of Claire's, but his path uncovers something far more sinister. While searching the ruins, Leon encounters a figure he never expected to see here. Hunk, cold, efficient, and silent. The man known as the lone survivor of countless missions. Leon quickly connects the dots. Hunk is behind some of these disappearances, including Sherry's. He's been abducting altered blood survivors around the world. Leon's encounters with Hunk are tense, tactical, and deeply unsettling. This isn't a stalker enemy. Hunk appears with purpose, fights with intent, and vanishes without hesitation. Leon slowly realizes Hunk is one of the operatives working with the connections. Leon's gameplay is pure RE2 remake energy, dark hallways, narrow escapes, slow building dread. He has his own puzzles to solve, his own creatures that ambush him, and his own mutated horrors to face. Eventually, Leon also takes the cable car up toward the Arklay Mountains, unknowingly getting closer to the truth. Chris's section takes place partially before Claire and Leon even reach Raccoon City. His gameplay is more action-oriented, akin to Resident Evil 4 Remake, with larger mobs of enemies and intense combat scenarios. While working in Europe, Chris investigates the BSAA and uncovers that the connections have infiltrated the BSAA and have been using them to test their experiments. Chris encounters one of the kidnapped survivors, a familiar face, Jake Mueller, Albert Wesker's son from Resident Evil 6. Jake inherited genetic abilities from Wesker, making him immune to most viruses in the past. However, the new hybrid virus is highly dangerous, and the mold takes over his body. Jake has been captured and experimented on for months, leaving him unstable, violent, and barely recognizable. The fight with Jake is a full boss battle, tragic, brutal, and desperate. Jake's body is rejecting the experiments, and in his final moments, he points Chris toward the Arklay Mountains and warns him that the kidnappings are part of something much larger. Realizing that Claire is walking into something far worse than anyone imagined, Chris immediately contacts Jill and tells her to get to Raccoon City. He then begins his journey back toward Raccoon City and the Arklay Mountains, where the second half of his playthrough will take place. Jill enters the story when Chris contacts her from Europe. He tells her that he can't leave his mission, but Claire is going into the quarantine zone and needs backup. Jill immediately heads to Raccoon City, entering through a different path than Leon and Claire did. Her time in Raccoon City is exploring different sections that Claire and Leon didn't even touch, but she is blindsided, ambushed, taken. When she wakes up, she's restrained inside a transport vehicle moving toward the Arklay region. The man standing over her is none other than Nikolai, smirking and taunting. This is her former nemesis from Resident Evil 3. Nikolai is the second operative behind the kidnappings, working alongside Hunk. But unlike Hunk, Nikolai enjoys the hunt. He enjoys breaking people. Jill is targeted because of her special blood, altered by experiments done to her in Resident Evil 5. Jill manages to escape the vehicle and flees into the Arklay Forest. This section is pure nightmare fuel. Injured, low on ammo, stalked by Nikolai using tracking tools, night vision, and psychological warfare. Eventually, after surviving the forest and hybrid creatures, Jill stumbles upon a rebuilt Spencer mansion. Massive and alive. Inside, her story becomes puzzle-heavy, claustrophobic, and brutally terrifying. The connections have been conducting hybrid viral experiments for years. After infiltrating several branches of government, they gained something far more powerful than laboratories: a sanctioned dead zone. Certain officials quietly compromised or outright replaced, authorized the permanent quarantine of Raccoon City's ruins. On paper, it was public safety. In reality, it created a lawless, consequence-free region large enough to run full-scale bioweapon experiments without oversight. Hunk and Nikolai are the two top operatives. Hunk handles clean extractions and precision fieldwork. Nikolai handles psychological warfare, surveillance, and unstable subjects. Both of these characters have been mutated with this new hybrid strain. They are no longer human, they are now superhuman. Their targets include Sherry Birkin, Jake Mueller, Jill Valentine, and anyone carrying leftover viral antibodies or mutagenic traits. They are not being killed, they are being harvested, studied, tested, refined. All of it points upward to one man pulling the strings. Oswell E. Spencer is alive. Wesker's attack didn't kill him in Resident Evil 5. It triggered the awakening of a hybrid strain that Spencer had been secretly injecting himself with years prior, combined with mold-based compounds he had been testing long before the mansion incident. His body revived in a twisted, stable state. Not monstrous, yet profoundly inhuman. Spencer didn't just return, he took everything back, hiring Hunk to eliminate Brandon Bailey, the true leader of the Connections, and seizing total control of that organization. With the Connections under his command, Spencer now possesses global influence, government infiltration channels, an isolated quarantine city protected by law, and unlimited subjects contaminated by past outbreaks. Spencer rebuilt the Spencer Mansion not just as a symbol, but as a throne, the crown jewel of his laboratory empire inside the quarantine zone. The enemies encountered throughout the game include molded hunters, lickers, zombies, failed human experiments, twisted scientists loyal to Spencer, and captured Outbreak characters appearing as bosses throughout the game, mutated and experimented on in tragic ways. The Spencer Mansion is enormous, far bigger than the original, with entirely new wings, underground tunnels, laboratories, and ritual-like chambers. Lisa Trevor also makes her return in this game. She's been alive this entire time and was captured shortly after the explosion of the original Spencer Mansion. Every character can encounter Lisa Trevor, transformed even further by hybrid experimentation. Depending on the zap system, only one will face her as a full boss, so this means that any of these characters in this game can face Lisa Trevor. The mansion is heavily puzzle-based, echoing classic Resident Evil design, but on a much grander scale. The boss fights include a mutated Jake Mueller with Chris Redfield, a Mr. X molded hybrid with Claire, Hunk for Leon, Nikolai for Jill, Lisa Trevor based on the Zap system, captured Outbreak characters appearing as bosses, and a final boss battle with Spencer. Chris will face him directly in a multi-phase battle, fighting waves of enemies. All paths converge at Spencer's Sanctum. Truth is revealed, characters confront their past, and Zap decisions affect certain outcomes. Leon faces his guilt over Raccoon City. Claire confronts her fear of losing Sherry. Jill confronts her past trauma, and Chris destroys Spencer, bringing closure. The survivors escape as the mansion collapses, leaving the future open for the series. There are also playable sections of this game where you will encounter or play as other characters from prior Resident Evil games, like Sherry Birkin, Rebecca Chambers, Carlos Oliveira, and Ada Wong. And speaking of Ada Wong, there will also be a separate full campaign called Separate Ways, expanding on Ada Wong's time during this game. As for extra game modes, of course there will be a Mercenaries mode, but this Mercenaries mode will feature a co-op mode, where you can play with a friend, either split screen or online. And that's my vision for Resident Evil 9 Requiem. Of course, this isn't the official story, this is just my take, my rough draft, my version of where the series could go next. I wanted to give you an overall idea, show how the characters, enemies, and systems could all come together, and imagine a game that really honors the horror, tension, and legacy of the original Resident Evil games. If you did enjoy this video, let me know what you think down in the comments. What would you want to see for Resident Evil 9? And if you want more of this kind of content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss a Resident Evil video that I bring. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.